Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. Today we're going to do a bit of a repeat, but a bit of a valuable reminder. And it was brought on by one of the listeners who was extremely inspired by the story of Tiger Woods coming out of the funk he was in and winning the Masters. Now, I'm not much of a sports guy, but it doesn't take much to realize that what he accomplished was pretty significant. Now, I've got 3 episodes out there. One's called Getting Up, one's called Taking Charge, and the other one's called Reinventing Yourself. And if you were willing to watch those 3 videos, you're going to see a bit of duplication with the content that's going to be in this show. So what do I call this one if I've already done something like this? I think one of the terms we talk about when you see something that Tiger Woods did is rebounding. You rebound from a bad situation to a situation that you may have thought, well, maybe it's not possible. Now, of course, we know I'm not a big sports fan to begin with. I love baseball. That's my main sport. One can conversate during a baseball game. One can look at intricate strategies with multiple layers in baseball. Golf has its moments, right? What I know is that Tiger Woods was absolutely unequivocally on top, and when you get on top, you get a level of arrogance that is sort of an invincibility shield because you have worked really hard. You're so good at your craft that you can't fail, and so you take liberties. And he did, and he got bit by it, and it was hardly the worst story we've seen in sports, especially now that NFL guys seem to either rape or murder somebody they're dating on a monthly basis. But doing what he did at the age he did and winning the Masters again is nothing short of absolutely phenomenal. It is. So we're not probably big giant sports stars watching this show, right? And so I'm definitely not one. But life will throw you some pretty crappy moments every once in a while, doesn't it? And, what's interesting is I might tell a story that your life was fine and then it went down and then it came back up. Some of you might have the opinion, well, shit, man, I don't know if I've ever seen an up moment in my life. Maybe the second half of this analogy is more important to you than the first example of what people might be going through who have been on top. One of the most common mistakes we make, and I have made it several times, is when you're on top, which means there's 3 hemispheres of life that I adhere to. If you watch season 1 especially, I talk about it a lot, which is the self, work, and then family. That's usually how you build your life. You have yourself, you're not married, you have to get a job before you can find a girl that's going to pay attention to, or a guy. I mean, I'm always kind of biased because I'm a dude. But usually get your job. Some of you get education to get the job. Big deal. It's part of the job anyway. And then after that, you go for the family. And so when all those things come together well, and maybe you haven't even started the family yet, when it all goes well, you're making money, you live in a great place, you have great friends, you have a great employer, you're real important at your job. We tend to have this illusion that all the circumstances that are making our life grand total to this feeling are never going to go away. You're going to keep this status forever. And I find that folks that are more naive and new to this euphoria become the most confident, and they fall the quickest and the fastest and the hardest. Now, it's one thing to fall when you're Tiger Woods and you probably have $100 million to your name, if not 2 or 3 times that amount of money. I don't know what the guy's worth. And then it's one thing to fall and find yourself damn near homeless. So us citizens down here at the normal level of humanity experience a hell of a lot more than a Tiger Woods experiences when the crash occurs in our lives, right? However, Tiger Woods coming back against all of the I don't want to say world champions, but it is sort of world champions. Golf is a global game for sure. But you have the best golfers in the world, and you're supposed to go to one of the most prestigious golf courses on planet Earth, Augusta, play the Masters, and beat everybody. Now that is something that, regardless of how rich the guy is or poor the man is, he has to pull that out of his body and soul. So hats off to him. We don't necessarily have to win the Masters to rebound, but sometimes to get back on top, it will feel like the Masters. It will feel daunting. It will feel like there are 1,000 reasons why you should give up. It will be hard. It will exhaust your mind and your soul. But tomorrow you got to wake up and do it again. So the first thing I want to shout out to people that are listening to this video, if you're on top right now, I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to write down everything that is determining the fact that you're on top. And I want you to double down and make sure that those things are protected. If you're important at your work, go in and try to make yourself twice as important. If you've had a few rough relationships, I'm going to stick with work for a second because that's the first one out the door, right? If you've had some rough relationships at work, go and mend those relationships. Even if you're on top, you're like, screw that guy, screw that chick, whatever. Go mend that relationship because you don't know when those people might be over your head. They might go to your competitor and then your company goes under. And even though they were nobody at your company, they're the head person at the other company and they're going to look over your resume. And if you've apologized or mended things with them, you might find yourself welcome at the other place where you could go to maintain your lifestyle. Here's another big one. If you're making a ton of money, then stop spending it and put a bunch away. Put a bunch away for a rainy day. Get used to spending less. Simplify your life. You don't need toys. Go see my episode on Needful Things. Simplify your life so you get to keep more of your money. And if you haven't met rich people before, that's what they do. The amount of scrutiny I see in guys worth $100 million or more on what a valet costs. They won't even park in valet. They'll screw that. I'm not paying for someone to park my car. Poor people are like, yeah, I get to valet. It's the greatest thing on earth. Valet is starting to become one of the biggest goddamn scams on planet Earth. I mean, they want you to valet at your grocery store. They want you to pay for parking everywhere you go in the world. Yeah, Mount St. Tongue killing the slumlords. I think America could do with a little of that for the valet park owners. Not the valet guys, but the people that are like, oh, my parking lot's so special. I got to make you pay $10, $20, $30 just to park next to a nightclub. It's all right to get a buck or two, but Jesus, man, these people in LA are insane. And they just raise the price to gouge you. And there's no ordinance that says they can't. It's just crazy. Yeah, free market, right? Yeah, whatever. So if you're on top, take provisions to stay on top. If you're very arrogant and very confident, or both, that you can't be touched, it's your company. You're staring at a guy that used to deposit $500,000 a month. You can fall. Let me tell you, man. We had a recession in 2008, completely orchestrated, and we had Steve Jobs walk on stage and say that Flash is dead. And HTML5 was going to replace Flash. What a joke, right? It still hasn't replaced Flash. It's getting better with React and a few other technologies, but seriously, Flash is nearly dead. No one wants to develop in it, and there's nothing like it. I did entire online music studios in Flash. Okay, amazing stuff. So you can have weird random events occur that take you out of the mix. The founder of your company could die. Your company could get purchased by another company unbeknownst to you. Not your company personally, but the one you're working for. I've had that happen as well. The people who made TurboTax here in America got infiltrated by a family that sold it off to a tiny little competitor. And then a big giant fish that used to be a 3-man company when I first met him, Intuit bought that little fish. No one would have ever thought that we invented TurboTax, and it would be owned by this bizarre little tiny 3-man team that made this product called Quicken. But that's what happened. Enough said. Now, of course, with the self, the other thing is that if you feel like you're healthy, stay healthy. Don't go switching. Don't say, oh, I can eat whatever I want to eat today because I'm so healthy. That's the way you lose your health. If you're unhealthy but you're on top in every other category of your life, then go get healthy, because you might get a diagnosis that you hate that takes you out of this world, and you're looking around going, oh my God, I have a beautiful job, beautiful family, and now I've got cancer and I'm going to die, or something else. It's when we get confident that we make all these mistakes, and it's really odd how our perception and our enlightenment implodes when we become extremely confident with our world. We lose sight of everything that's wonderful. Now let's talk about the crash. The fall. With Tiger Woods, he obviously got very used to having some female on the side, even though he was married to one of the most beautiful women, had beautiful kids. He just had something on the side. Who knows where he learned that? Probably from other people who were doing it. And once you get away with it once, you can get away with it again and again in your brain. He probably was, I have no idea if what I'm saying is true, so don't attach this to him whatsoever, but I could see him having the ability to be with several women before he gets married. And then when he gets married, people might tease him about the one. You're going to have one woman your whole life. How could you do that? Oh, no, man. I guess I'll go get some more women, If he gets upside down, and no one knows that guy's story, truly. But when someone gets upside down, they might turn to alcohol and drugs to kind of take off the edge. Maybe that was always part of the game, hidden underneath the antithesis of his veneer, that he was a good guy and kept everything straight. I think he's a good guy. But, everybody can get into something you're not supposed to get into. And as long as you don't fall, no one notices. How many rockers have you heard these stories, where they got strung out on heroin, but they survived? And then you find out all the guys that took heroin and died. But the fall. How fast can a fall occur? I've seen it happen damn near overnight to friends of mine. I have seen it happen over a year. And the problem is that you get into the situation where it is a diminishing return mindset. Because the more unpredicted the moment was, the more that you find yourself unable to do all the things that you did prior to the fall. That's to the degree it is going to shock your system. You'll be stunned. You may or may not have any faculties to deal with the moment because you've never been there before. You'd never fallen before. I had mentioned there was a guy in my hometown in the last 2 years, his marriage fell apart. He was married successfully for 20 years. And I don't know anything about his personal life or why that occurred. He eventually was posting on Facebook way too much information about his personal life, in my opinion. But he had enjoyed 20 years of a successful marriage, which, a lot of people in this day and age have never experienced 5 years of a successful marriage. So in one realm, he got really confident in his marriage, and eventually he started accusing himself for about a week or two of having lost his appreciation for his wife. He didn't tell her that he loved her. He didn't treat her like a queen. And it's hard. It's hard to keep up that kind of celebration of someone you're living with, infinitely every single day. Now, the people that can do it and do it genuinely, and they're not kiss asses. They're actually saying, you're an amazing person. I just want you to know that. And time it enough that it hits that heartbeat of their need to hear it and your need to say it. You hold it in till you almost can't hold it in anymore. What you did when you were in your euphoric infatuation stage, they keep that going. And sometimes that's what makes the difference. In my own family, I've seen people with pretty amazing jobs, some of the best jobs they've ever had in their life. And I even made a phone call at one point to one of my family members, and I said, look, the recession is coming to your area. It is hitting the coast right now. It's going to take a couple years to get to you. So be careful. I said, be nice. Don't have any, don't allow any bad blood to exist at your company. And you know what the person said? That'll never happen, because where I live is awesome, and that'll never happen. The person got a new boss, didn't agree with that boss, lipped off, and got himself fired. And since that moment, and this is 19 years ago, 19 years ago, that person has never had steady employment in his life. His arrogance, pure arrogance, and a bunch of made-up crap about where he lived in his own brain was going to protect him from ever losing his job. How idiotic was that? Lost it. And then when it's really difficult to rebound, because when you fall, you naturally just try to rebound. Yeah, just look for another job. I'll call my buddies up. We'll get something rolling. It'll be okay. And then when you do that and you don't get any responses, and you're thinking, okay, well, maybe my salary requirement is just a little too high. And you bring your salary down. And you bring it down like maybe $5,000 a year, then $10,000 a year, then $15,000, then $20,000, and you're starting to look at your bills, and you're looking at the salary you're putting online, and you're like, oh my God, even if I got the job, I'd have to take something on the side or get rid of my minimum quality of life. Now, I don't have a lot of these experiences personally, but I did have one right after Electronic Arts in 2002. Actually, 2001, they started laying off a ton of people. I've told you this, guys, a bunch of stories. They had 3 massive layoffs globally, and they were literally laying off the maximum amount of people that the state of California would have allowed them to lay off. In other states, they were just wholesale slaughtering, 3,000 people out of one location. They had no choice. The business unit had failed because they had trusted AOL to honor their deal, and they basically lied on their contract. Why we didn't sue them, I don't know. It's really strange. Why we didn't do an emergency change, I don't understand. But for whatever reason, leadership decided to fold up the online division and move it back into studio, meaning EA.com was its own business unit, its own CEO, and it went back underneath EA proper. So I was a very senior director at Electronic Arts before I left, making a ton of cash. I was one of the best internet architects probably on planet Earth at the time. Knew every language that was being used on the internet, had been sitting in meetings for 3 years on server architecture. I had taken through so many gigantic MMOs onto the servers, with obviously experts that are helping me on my end, that I just knew everything. I knew everything that was there to be known. We have, by 2002, you have probably, without exaggeration, 75 to 80% of the companies in the world were not online. So we have a huge market base, a huge client base to work with. And I'm in Silicon Valley at the time. So I came out with a pretty good chunk of change, so I wasn't worried about paying my bills for probably at least a year or so. But I'm sitting at home. I took a month off. I literally took a month off. It had been a grueling previous 3 years, and I played a video game. I can't remember what I played, but I played a couple video games. I used to review games, so I always had these betas coming in from all the companies. And my girlfriend came in one night, and she's watching me play a game, and she yelled at me. She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "What are you doing playing video games?" I said, "Look, I'm just taking a break." I literally told myself I was going to take a month off to play games, just to relax, right? You know what I've been through. It was hard for both of us, for you to be my partner while I was going through this, She goes, "Well, you better start looking for a job, because it's hard to find jobs out there, especially at your level. You better start." And I was like, okay. I've told her this day that it was something that was very valuable for me to have her do that to me. She had never stood up to me like that ever. Not that I make it any situation where she needs to stand up to me for any reason. But I really appreciated her lucidity. And so I went online and started looking for work. And lo and behold, no one was replying. Yes, Silicon Valley was imploding like crazy. The recession was hitting. Companies were just disappearing. I mean, it was amazing. Like, I watched skyscrapers that were full of, I don't know, a couple thousand people. You could drive by them afterwards and you could see through the entire building. They built the building for the company. They had so much funding. So no doubt the industry was extremely diluted with, probably really good coders out there. But my resume was amazing. And so I start taking down my salary, $10,000, about every month and a half. Thinking, if I were to go on the market at, say, $100,000 a year in Silicon Valley of all places, and just so you understand, when I moved from Silicon Valley, from a 3-bedroom apartment into this 3-bedroom house, that apartment still, right now, if they hadn't raised it $1, that apartment's still more expensive than this house. And that's 16 years ago. Insane in the membrane, that place. The fucking arrogance that place has to charge that much money is unbelievable. But anyway, I did not have a single bite in the Bay Area. Not one. And so what I ended up doing, because I wasn't going to sit there just looking for jobs and playing video games, is I started drafting up a new web platform that I had fantasized about for the last 2 years and created it. And it worked extremely well. And I started deploying it to my clients, because I had some clients on the side, piddly squat money. And it worked great. I was able to do all kinds of wild things with it. And it wasn't, I didn't get any normal work until almost a year and a half later. And it was like $5,000 here, $5,000 there. I was blowing up my credit cards trying to exist. My savings got destroyed because I was living off of it. I didn't get to buy a house, didn't get to do something I really should have done, right? Now, had I put away more money when I was on top, I could have at least come out debt-free. Now, when it came time to lay off everybody at the company, I've told you guys this, the story. I won't repeat the parts that I've already said, but one of the biggest things that happened was that the people at the company that sat around all day kissing people's asses and doing fucking no work whatsoever, they were kept on. And what they found out when they laid all of the workers off, those of us that didn't pop in and give a donut away and just bullshit about nothing, when they laid all of us off, they found out all they had left were the bullshitters who couldn't do any code whatsoever, couldn't organize a project if their life depended on it. And so eventually, one by one, they got laid off. The company went literally into a stasis mode because no one could do anything for a while. I was very fortunate that by the end of the year, 2002, I was able to move back to Southern California, which is where I belong. But I did some consulting, did some video games for HBO, did some other things. And eventually I took one of my employees from there who also moved down to Los Angeles. He's on the north side of Los Angeles, and we formed a company together, and that's how we survived. But that didn't start until April of 2005. So it was scrapping time, man. Now, part of my personality is different than other people's personalities, and I hope that we're more alike than disalike, because when I get into sort of a bad situation, I'm very optimistic. No matter if there's zero indicators that I should be that way, that's just how I remain. And so I will bounce through a bad era just sort of believing in the universe, believing in God, believing that God feeds the birds and he'll feed me eventually. And miraculously, usually now, when I'm almost about to run out of money or something, poof, the phone rings and something happens. I get a job. I reach out to the right person, take the right interview, and I usually have a pretty good time. But sometimes you'll have that job, that wife, that husband, the kids, everything, and for whatever reason, it's not doing it for you. It's not them. And it's not like you want to get away from them at all. It's just life itself as a sum total thing isn't what you wanted it to be. And so this is where the other episodes are extremely handy. Now, the other episodes are geared towards sort of getting, sort of surviving these situations. Getting back to the point where you're swimming above water, you're safe, and things are good. What I'd like to do with this episode, in honor of Tiger Woods, is to maybe say, let's remind yourself, each other, that greatness is attainable at all times. It is. Whatever you define greatness to be. Now, too often in this show, I do, I apologize this way several times in episodes, I use my world to illustrate greatness probably a little too much. And so I will use music, film, more celebrity-based pastimes to really give you an idea of how far you can go. But it doesn't have to be anything like that whatsoever. Whatever greatness is for you is what it is. And if yours is unique and yours is even less perceived as an amazing thing, then you're probably dealing with something that's easier to attain because everyone else is going for this other thing. And so if your destination of total greatness is pretty cool, stick with it. Totally stick with it. Now, there are things, and I've mentioned this in the past, there are things that you may want to strive for that have physical limitations sometimes. I have known several people that have had physical moments of greatness. They were athletes, or they were models, they were competitive, fitness people. And so they were able to win something at 25 years old, and now they're hitting into 40. Maybe they've had a couple kids. The guys drank too many beers, and there's this perception you can't achieve this physical greatness, and that there's no group that even cares if you did. Well, the world has changed, hasn't it? There's a whole fitness trend out there. I mean, I'm just going to use this as an example because we have to address certain things here. There's a whole fitness realm out there for people in their 40s. These moms who are like 50 years old, and my God, they're better looking than every obese social justice warrior who's 19. So there's a group for everyone and for everything that you want to get into. No, you can't roll back time and become a 15-year-old person. But don't let that stop you from finding something in your own age range that's really awesome. People are changing themselves and reinventing themselves all the time. And part of that game that's really exciting is the moment when you perceive yourself as being capable of being someone different than you are. The limitations that you perceive sometimes are only the result of you seeing yourself as being only capable of being one thing. Tiger Woods has a constraint. He is a pro golfer. So his greatness, one of his greatest things he can do is be the best pro golfer, because that's what he is. But he could also be the best father in the world. He screwed up being the best husband, but that doesn't mean he can't get back on top, marry someone else, and be the best husband. It goes into every level of granularity that is our existence. You could be a really crappy friend, crappy son, crappy daughter to your parents, and you just turn a new leaf, and you're like, you know what? I've been a right piece of S, and I am going to change. I'm going to call my dad, call my mom, whatever, apologize for my behavior, or maybe you don't even want to apologize. You just start being nice, and believe me, your parents don't need an apology half the time unless there's some acute moment where you were a total jerk and you need to address that and move on. A friend of mine 2-3 weeks ago said, I need to make an extra $1,000 a month. I just need to. And so she started reaching out to other people that have little side businesses and she's got a few things that she's going to try. Here's the thing. I told her that was fantastic. And I said, you know what? The real key success of what you've done, even though you haven't accomplished this extra $1,000 a month, is that you conceived that you wanted an extra $1,000 a month. Just the pure conception is the first seedling to going out and making it real. If you don't conceive of it, could it ever happen? Heck no. And so the idea is, if you have fallen by your own actions or by life serving you a really bad, hand of cards, you're coming up all twos. Well, if you, like I said in the episode, having a thick skin, the idea is, if you anthropomorphize life and you think life is this thing, it's got Mother Nature, Father Time, and all this other horse shit, let me just call it that, and that somehow these things are acting on you, that God himself is going, it's time for you to get the traffic ticket. You will convince yourself that that is the frequency you belong in, and through the manifest destiny equation of life, which is extremely real, you will dial in and attract all that negativity to yourself. But if you can say, wait a minute, this isn't the way God works. One of the biggest gifts you're given is you control your life. You control everything around yourself. Didn't they say in the Bible, you can, if a guy wants to move a mountain, he can. It's just the faith that prevents you from doing it. If you think about it, there's a bunch of people that jumped out of windows back in the 50s because they thought they watched too many Superman episodes and thought they could fly. Little kids did it too. So we're not talking about exactly that kind of delta between reality and this other vision you might have. If it's technically impossible, I don't know, maybe you want to be careful with that whole thing. You don't want to test your lifespan out with your ideas. But how many times have you ever heard someone say, my life had come down to this moment? In fact, there's, I know a person who sort of bottomed out here in Hollywood, came here, got some gigs, was able to survive, still living in kind of squabble, but it was, the suffering artist sort of thing, comedian. And what she did was she took all of her credit cards and said, you know what, I can always bankrupt myself. And so she traveled the world and filmed everything with a bunch of cameras. And then came back and realized she had enough material to make a show. She cut together a pilot and took it to a studio, and they bought it. And she got a job being a host of this world traveling show. Had she not had the foresight that could potentially be a future for her, and had the guts to risk it all. She had no kids or anything, no husband, so you risked it all, and it all worked out. Part of it is not losing faith in yourself. I will remind you, you are an amazing being, not just because you're Homo sapiens sapien, not just because God created you, but because your family survived all world history up to the point of your birth. All of it. All of it. Okay? We don't even know our own history, right? Because it's all been erased and revised and a bunch of stuff. But they survived it all. All the plagues, all the wars, all the migration, dinosaurs, whatever, right? They survived, and you are the some byproduct of all that DNA. So why should you lose faith in yourself again? Are you some trivial being? Only if you believe it. If you're a Democrat, you should probably change parties and start perceiving yourself as actually strong instead of weak, that needs socialistic help. One of the other things that we wish we had, and sometimes it doesn't exist, and I think most of the time it doesn't exist, or even if it does exist, it has a marginal effect on us, which is a support team from other people. Someone that's willing to tell you, don't worry, man, it's going to be okay. It really is. I'm telling you. I don't even know you, but I can tell you it's going to be all right. But here's the requirement. Have faith in yourself. Look at your hand. Look at it and go, wow, I am a human being. This hand is made out of all the DNA that has survived all of world history. And supposedly, if you're inclined to have lack of faith in yourself, supposedly, you're the first generation that went, I can't do it. Really? Because you can. You wouldn't exist if you didn't have that DNA embedded in your system with instincts that know how to survive. Yeah, do times change and jobs change and the kind of knowledge you need to know and the complexity of the knowledge you need to know change? Sure. But I have guys that come to my house all the time that do general contractor stuff. They take care of my plumbing. They do amazing things. They build patios. They do all kinds of things. Guys who fix my cars. There's all kinds of different levels of complexity there. I'm sure that whatever you love to do, there's a job in it. Because you just said the word love if you're going to pick out the thing that you love to do. Now, sometimes it requires change, and sometimes change is what we don't want to do. We're afraid of change. Change was what took you from being on top to being on bottom in your mind. You had some money? I didn't have any money at all. You have no money coming in from anywhere. You've exhausted your unemployment insurance. You're just sitting there. Well, what's that classic definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting something different to happen? That's probably not the best thought you can have. But instead of viewing it as a permanent scar on your intelligence, perhaps it's just a frequency that invaded your mind. And it's okay to go through the phases of self-doubt, only to find yourself in the end going, you know what? Screw that. I'm not going to let self-doubt have anything to do with me. Hear me roar is what you need to say. What's that old saying about the devil whispering in your ear and say, just wait till the storm comes and you'll be destroyed. And then you whisper back to the devil, I am the storm. There you go. That's the attitude you need to have. A change of paradigm in your mind. Now, does that mean that just changing the paradigm in your mind, 5 minutes later is the phone going to ring? Well, it can be that quick, trust me. But no, maybe it takes a little bit of action on your part. It's the old blonde joke where the blonde keeps asking God to let her win the lottery over and over and over. She prays and prays and prays, and then finally God leans down inside of her room and says, buy a ticket, right? Buy the ticket because you can't win without buying the ticket. That is a metaphor for change. That person needs to take action in order to have a reaction. What was the story of the coal miner's daughter? That old story where she is living in a fairly repressed world. Men are the only ones that work. Women are repressed. I think she wasn't the traditional story. She was married to an abusive husband or something, or at least someone that was very chauvinistic. And eventually she just got tired of that crap. And she changed. But what did she change? She just changed the inside of her mind and said, you know what, I'm not putting up with this crap anymore. I see strong women out there getting everything that they want, and I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go get that thing. And that's exactly what she did. For most people that don't perceive themselves as extraordinary, you are extraordinary. It's just a mutant gene you haven't turned on. Again, let me always remind you. I'm going to do it a couple times in this episode. You are the survivor of your entire family line, which is the entire history of the world for our species. If you didn't have it in you, your family line would have disappeared. That branch just would have ended. But it didn't. When you look back in your family line, you can typically find several successful people. Well, what'd your grandfather do? What'd your grandmother do? What'd your great-grandfather do? What'd your aunt and uncle do? What'd your dad do? What'd your mom do? What I hear, because I'm going to talk more about this festering moment of doubt, because we have to extinguish all of the misnomers and misclassifications of what that really means. A lot of times my friends that had brothers and sisters, there's usually some favoritism inside the brother-sister realm. Maybe someone got all the looks. Maybe someone's naturally thin and you're not naturally thin, or whatever the case might be. Someone's doing really good at school and you're not doing good at school. Well, I know a lot of people that don't do well in school, but they do really good in life. A lot of people with straight A's have to go marry someone just to survive, just to live off someone else's income. My hometown is full of people like that. You're kind of CB students, well, they went off and started their own businesses and became millionaires. Your straight A students struggle to this day to survive because it's not a checklist. You can't just read a book, memorize something, go take a test, and life is like a bowl of cherries. I'll give you an analogy that is very true. And if you study this a little bit online, you'll find that people agree with me and that I poached it off them. There's this British guy, he's Indian, and Indian. And he's a British guy. He grew up in, I think, was it Liverpool or something like that, in a really tough neighborhood just outside of London. And it was rough. Where he lived, it was rough. I've got another friend of mine who grew up in Dublin, same exact story. But so this Indian guy, he teaches fighting, street fighting, to survive. Real fighting, not the crap you learn in school or whatever. You know, when you get an attack, that never happens that way. I had a friend of mine, a fairly intelligent person, I thought, was posting some fighting video the other day, and it was just the most ridiculous attack. It was like a guy grabbing a girl's shoulder. That's all he did was grab the girl's shoulder, and she had this move. They just knocked his... I was like, really? You think anybody attacks you like that? What, are you crazy? And she was like, yeah, this is the way to do it. I'm like, that's the way you're going to be a statistic, lady. But one of the number one things when you're in a fight is, you know, you're not... If you can escape the fight, that's what they'll always tell you. Run away if you can. I know it doesn't sound like a Hollywood movie, but your life is a precious thing, and if you lose it, you lose it, right? But if you're in a fight without severe weapons, but even if you are, I mean, you only have a choice. They're going to probably shoot you if you run away, so you might as well get in there and make it happen. One of the things they said is, you know, do not cower down. The second you cower down in a fight, turn your back, crawl into a ball, roll into a ball, or whatever. Well, you're certainly assuring your complete destruction to the degree that person wants to destroy you. Whatever bar they've set it at, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to maim this person. Some people are so stupid when they fight, they go to these death moves, they're kicking people in the heads, all this stupid crap. Not realizing they're, you know, right on the precipice of murder, and then they want to cry in court when they get a life sentence. Fuck those people, right? But one of the things you never want to do is back down. You get into it. And a lot of times a bully has never had anyone come at him. So they start the fight, and they're just in their mind, they're Pavlovianly trained. Okay, I'm going to swing, they're going to get hit, and then they're going to cower down, or they're going to run. And all their moves, all of their mechanisms to dominate the fight is based on someone turning into a coward. But the very first time someone fights back, they have nothing in their playbook at all. They're not used to getting clocked in their throat, in their chin, in their nose, in their eyes. They just have no experience. They've never been kicked in the balls. They never had their knees popped out. You know, they're gut punched really hard. A little bit of training could make you completely save your own life. I studied some martial arts in the Bay Area. It was, don't laugh, but it was Kung Fu. And it was Eagle Claw Kung Fu. And it was this, obviously an Asian guy who was teaching it. And he might have been 5'8", 5'7", probably $110. He was the master. And of course there's mixed martial arts and all this other stuff that's now really lethal, the greasy jiu-jitsu kind of stuff. You know, there's some guys running around at bars with all that knowledge, and they're just, you know, Neanderthals trying to prove to their infinitesimal egos inside that they're still strong and they're still powerful. You know, hopefully none of you are hanging around those places at that time of day to get into those kind of situations. And hopefully none of you ever experienced this. And I'm telling you this because we're going to switch this over to a mental thing, because the Kung Fu thing was all mental. But there's two things this guy taught me in class form that I thought was utterly brilliant. One, he boiled down every single attack you could possibly do. And he said, look, stop trying to learn these Taekwondo things and this other, you know, any art of fighting that has like hundreds of options. He says, because when you're in a fight, you don't want to be, unless you're an absolute master of fighting and you do it every single day and you teach it, you're not going to be able to recall, okay, what's the best punch for here and there? They want you to go for throat, knees, and eyes, but in that order. Usually, in fact, it could be knees first to draw the person down, but the throat is the automatic thing that once you get socked in the throat using the web in your hand here, you just jab someone in the throat, you will stun them in a way they've never been stunned before, because they will physically have a problem breathing. And if you want to get really nasty, you grab the Adam's apple and connect your fingers on the other side, and they have about 15 minutes of air left before they're going to swell up and probably die if they don't get a tracheotomy. But you can sweep a knee, push a kneecap from the inside out super fast, bring them down to your level if they're really tall. And, some guys know that this is an area, and they'll do whatever they can to cover it up if there's some serial rapist or something. But what you're trying to do is escape. You want to strike and escape. That's his whole tactic. But one thing he did, and I mentioned it a long time ago in season 1, I believe, but he had some pretty normal size females, maybe between 110, 120 pounds. And he said, he picked a woman out. He said, do you have kids? And she said, no. And he goes, well, do you have any sisters that have kids? Do you have nephews and nieces? Oh, yeah, totally. Got babies and stuff. And so he goes, okay. I can't remember if he did this first or second, if he asked the question afterwards, but he had a big guy come after her. And it was a big dude. And she just crumbled really fast. Didn't know what to do. And it was intended to be like that. Second thing he said was he walked up to her and he asked her the questions about the baby thing. Maybe that was definitely afterwards. But anyway, he said, I want you to imagine, take a minute, take 5 minutes if you need to, and imagine these children around you. And he said, now, the person coming after you doesn't really care about you. He wants to steal your kids because he's going to go do really bad things to them. And now, what is your resolve to get rid of his body out of this world? And you watch this woman just transform. And he changed her mind. He gave her a reference point that she used to defend these children. And boy, did she rise to the occasion. And what he also taught us was that, just so you know, Kung Fu was designed for a weaponless fighting, because he was telling us this point in history. I wish I'd remembered everything he said, but he said there's a point in history where in China you weren't allowed to have weapons of any kind because they wanted the people to be disarmed and the soldiers to be armed. This is, I think, before necessarily there was guns or anything, but swords and that kind of stuff. And so they had to be able to quietly totally take someone out, to be able to take someone out quickly. And they said that the whole form of fighting in Kung Fu was that so a 7-year-old and a 70-year-old could take out anybody with 7 pounds of pressure. That was the other thing he said. So that little reservoir in your throat, your Adam's apple, your knee, you really don't need a hell of a lot of pressure to push the knee completely out of whack. Now, the fun things about knees is you can knock them completely out, and they can just push their knee back eventually, but they won't be chasing you that night, guarantee you. And they won't be breathing right if you happen to mess up their neck. And one of his star students was a woman who defended herself against a serial rapist in San Francisco that was crawling through windows using catwalks, and he would catch a woman taking a shower. And she had just taken enough of his course to do the neck jab. And he pulled, just like a Alfred Hitchcock movie, he pulled the shower curtain apart. Or maybe he was standing there and she pulled it apart or whatever, but she's standing right in front of this dude. She's naked and wet. I mean, you can't be more vulnerable than naked and wet. And he's standing there. I don't think he had any weapons, but she jabbed him right in the throat, took him right down to his knees, ran out the door with her towel, and started screaming to the neighbors, and they went in. They finally caught the guy. Pretty awesome, right? So why tell this physical martial arts story in an episode about rebounding from a really bad situation? At some point in your life, you will get pushed around so much that you're not going to take it anymore. It's like the movie Network. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I think in America we're pretty disgusted with the super PAC extreme left telling us how our life is going to be completely immoral. We're going to be killing children, revaccinating our kids. We're sick and tired of it. Absolutely sick and tired of it. And so we're making mental changes. We're fighting back. It's a slow process, but we're getting there. But when it comes to your personal life and your personal happiness, I want you to envision the fact that you've just had enough of losing, of letting life control you. I used to give this analogy in the first couple seasons where, you don't want to be the pinball in the pinball game where you're being knocked around by the flippers, the bumpers, the kickers. You're being ejected every morning by a little pull stop. You're being completely controlled by life. I think it's in it's in the song by Ozzy Osbourne, Crazy Trains. He says, I watched all the dropouts write their own rules. And what a great line that is. And what is he saying? He's saying those C and D students, they lived free. They wrote their own rules. Again, when you hang out in smoke lounges at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon because you're self-employed, those are the people that you meet. People who said, you know what? I made my own company, or I became my own, I'm a consultant, so I run my own world. But I was a slave to a corporation at some point. And hey, corporations can be good. They can have great health benefits, 401k plans, vacation, all that good stuff. You just got to find them and find your position in them to make yourself significant. I told a story a couple times, but maybe this is a good time to tell it because it wasn't necessarily about me. Well, actually, sorry. It is actually a moment when I got laid off for the very first time. I'm 19 years old. I'm in California. I got no family out here, no savings whatsoever. I get laid off on a Tuesday morning. No idea this is coming. I'm a star employee, but the company had lost over $1 million in 1989. That was a tremendous amount of money. And a bunch of us were getting laid off. A bunch of the old guard were getting let go. And so this is when I found, my buddy gave me the little ad from the recycler about becoming a video game artist. And he said, you should go do this, man. You draw all the time, you paint, you do whatever. And so I went and got the interview and got the job, like right away. 2 days later, I was literally employed from this video game company and just loving life. But now, if someone had told me, now think about the math of this, okay, and this is you. I woke up on a Tuesday morning, April 15th. Maybe it was April 16th. I can't remember. 1989. Go look up April 16th. That would have been the day. I get laid off. Do you think I had in my mind, oh, no problem. 2 days later, I'm going to be a video game artist. Something I had been since I was 11, but only in my personal time. Not in a million years. I mean, maybe a million years I would have said, oh yeah, probably a video game artist, right? For some reason, I didn't come into California and seek the thing that I was doing in the Midwest. Stupid of me. It's another thing about setting your goals high, because if you get your goals, you're really bored to death of everything. But 2 days later, because it took me a day to go get the interview, literally it was like, I think it was a Tuesday, we hung out that day, and I got this ad, I made the phone call, got the interview, went to the interview, answered all the questions. The guy gave me a computer and a disc and said, take this home and draw, bring back the disc, and if we need you to bring back the computer, we will. So I bring back the floppy disk, I drawn all evening, got hired. Well, the day I get hired, I mean, I had a really funny story about that too, but I get, and I'm sitting in this beach house in Oxnard, California, which was their company, on the beach. We played in this really cool Tron Frisbee that was all lit up. It was super cool. And I ended up eating tacos from Taco Bell before they got bought out by Pepsi. It was really delicious back in the day. And I'm eating tacos and I'm drawing the company logo. They're assigning me my assignment. And life was good. There's some of you that will have that experience. But now what if I, sulked so much and really got into, oh man, I'm never going to get this or whatever. Maybe I would have exuded that in the interview and they would have been, man, you're probably pretty talented, but I don't want to be around your frequency. And it may not even be conscious. They may just be like, something wrong with that guy. So I'm going into the story because I want to make sure I don't demonize things that could be really great for you. And one of them is working for corporations that are decent. This was a small company. Small companies are the best, man. So I bring in my first gig, and I was one of the first guys to complete one of the Realm Art packages, and this was drawing the world in tile form. It's an old school thing. Before we had 3D. And the CEO was showing off my artwork and bragging that I had finished my first gig in about a month, and he was kind of raking the other employees over the coals, saying, man, you guys have been here a lot longer and you're not done with anything. So step up to the plate, man. Which was embarrassing for me. But and I've shared this in a different context. I shared the exact same story in a different context. So I'm going to give you the other context of the situation. But I sat down with the best artist in the company, who was this kid that had a whole history of creating amazing freaking art. He created a putt-putt golf game, but instead of having to be the traditional, miniaturized golf course thing, I don't know who designed the game, but it was like bathrooms and stuff. And so you were putting off of toilet seats and sinks and kitchen tables, and it wasn't anything. It was like a miniature game inside your house. It was utterly brilliant. But he sat me down because he turned in the next package, which was this beautiful castle. It was unbelievably gorgeous. But he sat me down, and without bragging, he just showed me how amazing he was. And he wasn't bragging about anything. And I'm looking at almost photoreal, sketch art in a computer, and I'm thinking, jeez, this guy's something else. So what did I do? I went home utterly inspired to up my game 2 or 3 steps before I bring in another piece of art, which I think I succeeded in doing. They also gave me the job of drawing all the splash screens to the games because they liked the way I do it. Your perception of yourself is key to the rebound. Tiger Woods had to have said to himself, I think I can do this. I'm pretty sure I can do this, right? It goes in that stage. I'm pretty sure I can. And then, oh yeah, he hits a few, he golfs somewhere, maybe does Augusta just as a practice run. He slams it in at some amazingly low score, and he's like, man, I think I got it. I got my mojo back. And then, of course, he shows up for the competition and proves it to the entire world. I don't dislike golf, but I'm not a huge golf follower. When I'm around people that golf, I can get back into it and understand where the competition is and where the game is. But I tell you what, seeing Tiger Woods do it is extremely inspiring to me. I saw Mike Tyson on YouTube throw like 4 or 5 punches in a bar the other day, and I thought, whoa, Mike's got it back too. But I'm sure he'll never get in the ring again. Only George Foreman does that. I think he's a contender. It's like crazy. So now let me ask you this before we close out. Raise your hand if you are one of the people that has gone through this once before. You were on top, then you were on bottom, then you're on top again. How did you treat being back on top a second time? Were you more careful? Were you more appreciative? Did you spend less money and save more? Did you work those relationships a little bit better? Were you less cocky, less arrogant? Did you come in stronger? You studied more. You learned your art better. It depends on what age you are. But I would say if you're 40 years old in America, you've probably gone through it at least once. Why? Because they used to orchestrate these crashes. They're trying to do it to Donald Trump again in 2019. They want to crash a bunch of stock markets. They want to crash a bunch of real estate again. Someone just published an article, 10 cities that are going to experience a major collapse in real estate. And I looked at all 10 of them, and they're fairly remote cities other than maybe Cleveland, Ohio. But what a crappy thing to do. There's so many conspiracy channels that are selling doom products. Unbelievable. Doom, and especially in an economic sense, is all the perception of the people. So all these big conspiracy channels that are trying to help you out, they're selling you doom in the first 2 minutes because they want to sell you flashlights. They want to sell you virus protection. They want to sell you some get-rich-fast scheme or how to survive during the apocalypse kind of thing. It's like, hey, how about we just prevent the apocalypse from happening? How about that little idea? How about stop telling people that a collapse is going to occur, so this rumor built of nothing but a bunch of naysayers circulates the world, and then we have something where people go, I'm not buying a house now because, I have the money and I want one and I need one, but I'm not going to do it because I heard on this channel that something bad's going to occur. Unreal. Don't believe the hype. Don't buy into that crap. If it happens, let it happen, but you just need to hunker down no matter what. Everyone that got out of the Depression hunkered down for the rest of their lives. They did. Saving money wasn't painful at all. Saving money was like, I know what it feels like to have nothing. I know what it's like to see my fellow citizens hurting badly. You realize that, during the Depression, the reported unemployment was like 36%. Some people think it was way higher. It usually always is a lot higher. That's a problem. They learned their lesson, and they, I think in large part, never experienced anything like that again. So, not to repeat myself terribly badly from my other episode, but what kind of falls do we have? I think the most common fall that we have today is actually probably relationship falls, because they are irrespective of the economy. Something goes south in your relationship. Well, sometimes those things are going to occur irrespective of anything that you do. Sometimes the more you try, the more they end up occurring. And it's not because you're being a naysayer in your own life and you're dialed into a negative frequency. Sometimes the other person is. Sometimes you can make it better. Sometimes you can't make it better. What I find to be very soothing in the end is to get closure with the event that occurred in a relationship. So if something goes south, you simply need to go, you know what, no matter what I would have done, that would have occurred anyway. Like I said in my alcoholism episode, I've dated at least probably 3, if not maybe 4. One person corrected it completely, but at least 3 people that are alcoholics, unbelievably great people, beautiful people, but they struggle and they're unable to conquer it. They may die of it. Who knows? They may lose all of their fortune in life. They may be rich, but they may never have a good time. Or have less good times than bad times. I mean, less bad times, less good times than bad times, yeah. So that's pretty organic. If you can play it forward a little bit in your mind and go, well, I really wanted that to work. My perception of them was I wanted them not to be that kind of person, but they really are committed to being that kind of person. Then, the thing that hurts in relationships when they go south is having this vision in your head of what they are, but they're not that person. And so you think, oh my God, I'm losing the best person in the whole world. And, that does occur. They're not alcoholic. They're perfectly fine. They just don't choose you. Maybe you changed. Maybe you guys grew apart. Things happen. Now more than ever, there's a million ways to find another person. There's so many dating sites out there, it's crazy. People with the exact same experience that you've had. They're just like you. And remember, it doesn't matter what you guys eat and drink and watch movies and all that likeness. That's good. You want that. But the number one thing that makes you compatible is your theme in life. Why do you exist? What do you live for? As long as that is similar, you're going to have a good time. So never forget that. When I was 17 years old, I challenged my mother and my soon-to-be stepfather with a piece of paper. I got this from Prince, but I used it on them. And under the cherry moon, there's a funny scene when they're out by this racetrack in the south of France. And she says something like, "Do you love me?" And he says, "Define love." And they start making out. And so I gave him a piece of paper and I said, I want both of you to sit away from each other. They had this bench seat in their apartment. in their kitchen. And I said, define love on a piece of paper, go for it. And they were like, whoa, shit. It was like they were a little worried, And they wrote down, I don't know, maybe like 10 words. And they only had one word between the two of them that was the same. But the synonyms of all the other words were pretty compatible. And I think they thought about it, and they're married to this day. So it worked out, because they found out that they live for the same thing. Now, sometimes we lose people because of illness, and we lose them way before they should ever be gone. And there's a listener out there, I don't know if he listens to the show anymore, but he did. And I think it was during the MK Ultra days. But he reached out to me on Skype. I've told the story once before. To make it really quick, his wife had passed. His wife was sick, and then I talked him all the way through it for a couple months, 2-3 months. And it was a heart-wrenching situation. He had 2 kids, and she just was ill of a couple different things. And she eventually passed. And I told him before she passed, I said, look, if she does go, because we weren't sure, I said, she might take care of you from the other side. She might find you the perfect mate on the other side. And of course, he's kind of stunned, and he's like, that sounds great. We'll see. And he lived in Oregon. She passed. It was rough. I had several sessions after that. And, my heart went out. He's such a great man. He was just a great guy. Any one of you would be honored to call him your friend, trust me. But sure enough, I can't remember how they met, if they met online or something. This girl lived in Kansas, of all the places, right? Here I am from Kansas, right? But he meets the most stunning woman. And they are together to this day. And it happened, I think, I feel like it was within 6 months. Boom. It's like something angelic occurred. And I see his posts all the time on Facebook, and he's just happy as can be. Just no complaints, man. Sometimes that can happen too. I always think Bon Scott took care of AC/DC and got him, Brian Johnson, excuse me. And then what did they do? They created Back in Black. The album that stayed on the top 100 billboards until 2014. It releases in 1980. It stays on there, 34 years in the top 100? Unbelievable. And it still comes back on every once in a while, too. But consecutively for 34 years. So have faith in the universe as a spiritual entity. And I want to remind you that God feeds the birds, right? He feeds the birds, he feeds the fish, he takes care of everything on this planet. And he takes care of you too. Just don't be naive and deny him the capability of doing that. Have faith that something wonderful will happen. And hey, if you happen to go through some really rough patches just before that happens, just think about it. When you do rebound into greatness, you're going to appreciate it so much more. I just had a call from a friend of mine, love her dearly. Under different circumstances, I'd marry her. She went through a really tough spell. I met her on top of the world. Went to her unbelievably gorgeous house. Had an amazing first, 6-hour session with this girl. We just became extremely good friends. We have Tesla in common. And then she told me, I think after it occurred, that she had become homeless at one point. This is an amazingly brilliant, beautiful girl. She was homeless. She had lost all this weight. I don't think a lot of us knew, because she had lost her cell phone because she couldn't afford to pay for it. So she wasn't able to contact us. She wasn't able to say, come pick me up. But now she lives in a wonderful city. She loves her job. She's appreciated by tons of people. I think she's dating someone amazing. I mean, she rebounded, and I just talked to her, was it 2 days ago? And I told her, I said, remember when you were going through all that other stuff, and I finally figured out you'd gone through that spell, and she still had about a year of things to fix in her life. And she did it. She did every single thing she needed to do. She's on top of the world right now. She's appreciating life. It's awesome. Set your goals high because you just might get them. And, I've said it a long time ago. I haven't said this in 100 episodes at least, so here we go again. When you hear celebrities interviewed about their life, about their goals, how'd they get there, what was their secret sauce, they always say the same thing in different words. A lot of times they use the exact same words. They said, follow your dreams and never stop until you get them. That sounds like something that a privileged person says, right? Pretty people say that. Not true. I mean, it ain't true that they're the only people that say it, and it's not true that it only works for pretty people and all this other crap. It's absolutely, positively true. Set your goals high. And again, forget all the celebrity crap I always mention. You could just want to be with someone wonderful. You could want to have a particular trade skill, job, something. If anyone else on this entire planet gets paid to do what you want to do, then you could be that person too. You may have to sell it within your neighborhood. Maybe you're in a more rural district of the world and no one is aware of that particular job being useful. Or maybe you need to move where that job is really useful. One of my pet things, it'll never happen in my lifetime, I don't think, but I'm supposed to meet a fairly famous archaeologist here shortly. Part of another venture that I'm sort of incubating into. But being, I don't want to be an archaeologist anywhere in the world, of course, but you got to pay your dues and do what you got to do. But it would be interesting in maybe my 50s or something to have enough money to get my bills paid. And then go on a little 6-month volunteer situation where I could maybe have to take some classes and some courses, but I'm willing to bet that if you just show up, they can give you a couple real remedial tasks, maybe, gridding off an area and then doing some real tender, digging or something. We're looking for this, we're looking for that. Hey, put this here, put that there. And I'm pretty sure we could learn it on the spot. But that's something I think would be really cool to do. Digging up history. And there's no propaganda around me telling to me it's one way or the other. I'm right there looking at it, making my own deductions, helping the process out. You can be anything that you can conceive yourself being. If you're a 4'9" girl, yeah, you probably won't be in the male NFL, no matter how much you identify as a male. I don't know if you can pull it off. Good luck if you can. Don't get hurt, okay? But there's just, it seems like there's an infinite level of things you can be. Perhaps things you've already been, perhaps things you've never been, but things that you have a good knowledge base on, and you can get into it. That's your rebound path. I have an episode called Reinventing Yourself, and that's really an episode about life is good, and why not make it better? Well, watch that episode, and then just apply it to your rebound strategy. Get excited about your rebound strategy, because you know why? You get to design it. It doesn't matter if anyone naysays it. Hell, if you got people around you that are going to naysay your rebound strategy, then don't share it. Make it your own little secret. Get yourself a little notebook, one of those little tiny ones that are leather bound and they have no writing in them, and just start filling that thing up with everything. There's something called an image board, which a lot of businesses use to capture the overall look of an interior design or architecture or something like that. But image boards are also used, and a lot of you have used them, and you've done this before, but you cut out pictures. You print out things from your computer. It's very important to make this analog. You can put it as your desktop on your computer as well, but it's much better to have it analog on your wall somewhere. Fill up a whole wall with every picture of everything that you want to accomplish in your life, whether it be possessions or a career, a place you want to live. Let's say you want to live in Hawaii. Well, cut out pictures of places you want to live in Hawaii. Do some research. Throw down some Google dudes on the streets and take snapshots of houses you might want to aspire to own or live in or rent or whatever. If you want to be in Hollywood, well, print out pictures of sound stages and backlots and sets and whatever it is you want to do. Fill your mind and your soul and your spirit with the frequency of what you want, and you'll be really surprised how nature just takes you there. But if you don't, like my friend who wanted to make an extra $1,000 without her conceiving of that need and that want, it was never going to happen. But the second she conceived of it, I'm going to tell you, if it was going to be, if we say the difficulty level was going to be a level 10 to get $1,000 a month, and she conceives of it, she immediately reduces that difficulty to a 5 out of 10. And the minute she starts taking steps, making phone calls, looking up things on the internet, trying things, becomes a 4, becomes a 3, becomes a 2, and eventually becomes a 0, and she gets her $1,000 a month. And I wouldn't be surprised if she could make $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Now, let's parse the Tiger Woods thing just a little bit here so that you can kind of perceive yourself in his camp. What did Tiger do, technically speaking? He played a golf game all by himself and got the best score that he's probably ever had at that course, or close to it, or whatever. I don't know his whole score and statistics. I don't follow any of that crap. But technically speaking, he played a game by himself, with himself, and got the best score of all the other people. But now, does he trade swings with somebody else? No. Does he trade balls with somebody else? No. He is playing a game all by himself. And then, because it's a game at the most prestigious golf club or country club in the entire United States. Augusta is so prestigious. Okay. I think it cost $500,000 to get in. At least it did 10, 15 years ago. It's on TV. So he goes and does this thing, it's on TV, and then we watch it, and it's this thing around the world. I think Trump's going to give him some medal for doing it. So what's the difference between Tiger and you? Okay, so let's say that you do something in your life, and you do it by yourself, and it's the best you've ever done it. But nobody knows you're doing it. There's not a TV crew on you. You're not doing it at a famous place. Well, what does that have to do with Tiger accomplishing what he accomplished? He accomplished it all by himself, with himself, by himself. It just so happens that other people cared. And so it's on TV, and it gets famous, and it's all over national news, and people are impressed. People know that it happened. All right, that's an ancillary benefit to what he did, not what he did. What he did was all by himself. Him sinking that last ball in the 18th hole. Did a child get fed because of that? Only if he donates his proceeds. Did he save someone's life out of a burning building? No. Did he release a piece of software that changed the world? No. Did he write a piece of music that will make lovers find each other? No. What he did was a completely isolated event that people cared about and simply filmed and put it on the news. I am going to suggest that every single person listening to my voice can blow that accomplishment away with half the effort. You can touch the world with half the effort. You can make a difference in a child's life, in your lover's life, in your own life. You could be holding someone's hand that would have died by themselves, and you usher them out of this world. Way more impressive than playing a golf game and getting the lowest score among other players. So before you think that fame is where you need to be, I don't know. It's not a bad thing, but I'm willing to bet you could do a lot better with a normal thing, quote unquote. So when I say rebound to greatness, it's your definition, it's your proprietary formula of greatness. If you don't have people around you that you think will support you, don't tell them. Tell them symbolic things. Things are going great. It's really coming around. I'm studying some new stuff. It's really hot stuff. I'm going to change my career. And they say, well, what are you doing? If it's a friend that's going to reply, great, awesome, that's awesome, great. If you're talking to someone like me, share everything, because, man, we'll pump you up with real comments, with real, support phrases. But if you got a naysayer in your family, your partner's not exactly sure what the hell you're doing, they think you're going to mess up, then you got to communicate to your partner, of course. But maybe if it's some ancillary friend, just go, well, I'm letting it be a surprise. I'm letting it be a surprise. But let me tell you one of my secrets. Sorry this is coming so late in the episode, but this is on the last subject here. I don't try one thing, I try 2 or 3 things all at the same time. Constantly. Even if one of them succeeds and it starts paying my bills and I enjoy it, I keep the other 2 or 3 things going. Maybe I take that off the burner because it's working now. I go to work every day, do something for someone. I'm changing the world in their world, but I put another one on the bar because I got 3 open slots for things I'm trying to do. When you don't have money coming in, and I've had that happen several times in my lifetime, you're a little preoccupied with that worry. And I'm going to tell you the secret is not to worry about it. Feel the certainty in your heart that that's going to be taken care of, but you got to work for it. Remember, luck is hard work mixed with opportunity. When you have someone say, let's say you get a job interview at some place. Right now in the technical industry that I'm in, I do web engineering. It was one of my fallback careers. There are so many platforms out there today that it's sort of laughable that the employers are sort of the expectation that the random platform that they've picked has a tremendous number of coders that know how to do it. Now, some of them understand and they put their salaries up there accordingly. We know we have a weird language we use. We know we have a weird platform that's not exactly the most popular platform. So we're willing to pay you deep six-figure digits to handle our proprietary thing. If you're in a learning curve to Rebound, you're going to have to probably limit, those 3 things. Let's say you had 3 things you're going to try to do at the same time. Work a couple of them in areas you're already an expert in. Maybe you just need to sharpen your skills. I'm an artist. Okay, so no matter what I do in art, there's 10,000 guys out there on the web that can blow me away, period. You'll never get rid of that amazing curve unless you really super hunker down and come up with a new style and something that's in demand and it's got some stickiness to it such that eyeballs want to watch it and want to experience it, and then someone could monetize that, right? But if you're in a learning curve, that's fine. Again, YouTube is your best friend when it comes to learning. I mean, the amount of new languages I've learned in the last 6 months is uncanny because I already knew virtually every language on planet Earth. But there's always some new framework, there's always some new platform that language is being used in a way that I've never done it before. And you'll find that if you're good at something in that category, learning the new spin on it, it's just, I see, it's a little bit different, but it's generally the same thing. You made that even easier. A lot of times that's the way it goes. I used to have to build that wheel every single time I wrote a piece of code. Now it's a library that I just download, install, and there's a few commands, and it does everything for me. Perfect. But I would recommend, if this episode appeals to you and if you're in this situation, go get those other 3 episodes. One's called Getting Back Up, one's called Taking Action, and the other one's called Reinventing Yourself. Those are 3 episodes in the self-improvement group on the playlist that could really help you get other dimensions of what I'm saying. Perhaps I had a better day and I said some things a lot better than I did in this episode. Anyway, hopefully that was extremely helpful to some of you. I hope that you can parse through, for those of you who are avid listeners to the show, I don't ever try to blow smoke. I find that has its purpose only in absolute dire situations where someone is almost irrational, to just tell them, look, I don't know how to make everything better, but things will get better because that's just what happens. So I'm trying to come to you from genuine experience, genuine perception. So just hopefully you're getting that vibe. Let me know in the comments if you're sensing anything other than that. Then anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. That's where you can get your audio turned to video, your video turned into audio. There's a locked Facebook group, a Twitter page, and a Patreon account for those who want to tip the account. The other thing I'm going to start saying to you guys for a few episodes is that there's a brand new channel for Deep Thoughts Season 1. If you go to the website, it's called Season 1. It's the link across the top. If you're on your mobile device, you got to click the little slashes, and then you'll find it. Please subscribe to that channel as well, because especially if you're not in America, there are easily 24 episodes that you haven't seen because they haven't been allowed in your territory, depending on where you are, especially in Germany. Okay, don't know what the deal is with that. So there may be episodes you've never seen. And, I'm hoping by 50 I got my format down a lot better. Pull the mic away from my face. But there's a ton of self-improvement in episode 1. Because that's where I started my focus. Was really, hey, I've got all this experience. I have suffered all kinds of different hardships. And I want to make sure you don't suffer those hardships if you can. And if you are experiencing it, and you're in the middle of experiencing it, there's 100 ways to get out of it. So if you're in one of those funks, get in there and listen to, just go to the self-improvement playlist and just start. Find titles that kind of rhyme with what you are. There's also episodes, probably one of the least viewed episodes in the entire series is called Giving. And you might think that's a little corny, but let me just tell you that giving is the way you get. That old saying, only get back what you put out. I believe in that 1,000%. 1,000%. When I make money, for instance, I leave large tips with people because I feel like I'm giving some, young kid, and in most of the cases, right, a fairly decent tip. One, I want to get good service every time I come back, but two, those kids can use that money for something that go get their dream. So if I got a little extra, I pass it out. One of my philosophies is, why have I always had money? Why have I always had a job or always found something just before my plane hits the ground? I think I'm like, oh my God, only God can save me at this point. The phone rings, boom, there's a job, and I'm sitting pretty. I personally believe it's because I contribute to the universe as much as I possibly can. And this show is a way I'm contributing to the universe. So again, a lot of you have great things to share with the universe. Some of you should probably already have YouTube channels. You just need to go get a camera, figure out the name of your show, the name of your channel, and figure out how you can, write down like 25, 50 episode titles you might do. And maybe you copy every title I've ever put out where you think you have something else to say and you say the other half of it. You're like episode 2 of Deep Thoughts, whatever it is. I won't be offended. I'll watch your shows. So understand, all of you have some piece of wisdom. Whether you've been able to engage it yourself and make it work, someone else can probably benefit from it. Anyway, that's all I got today. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.